Now you know the plot. Now let us see the faces behind the potentially devastating terror attack planned against Nairobi residents by suspected Al-Shabaab assailants. And of course, NTV can reveal that 5 people, Abdi Majid Hassan, Eden, Mohammed Osman Nane, Anthony Katila Macau, John Kiare and Lydia Nyawira Mburu, in one way or the other, were planning or aiding the plan to cause death and destruction in the city. I have the details on the roles they played in the foiled terror attack. This is Abdi Majid Hassan Eden, originally from Marsabit County. He is the lead suspect in the thwarted terror attack. He played the biggest role procuring the vehicles which were later loaded with explosives. He sourced for safe houses and facilitated the movement of the vehicles from El Ade, Somalia through El Wak and Merthi. The next person, or the next accomplice, is Mohammed Osman Nane. His main role was to facilitate the movement of explosive-laden vehicles. He worked closely with the lead suspect. Nane was arrested alongside Abdi Majid while a few others escaped. All right, the third person is Anthony Kitila Macau. He's a taxi driver in Nairobi who facilitated the movement of the lead suspect. The two spent most of their free time together attending various parties. The fourth accomplice is John Kiare. He helped the lead suspect acquire forged identity cards. Kiare connected the lead suspect to a lady who helped him forge 4 identity cards at the cost of 170,000 shillings. Kiare himself kept 10,000 shillings as facilitation fee. The person who allegedly forced the IDs, or forged, I should say, the IDs was one Lydia Nyawira Mburu. Now, Lydia Nyawira Mburu allegedly prepared the 4 identity cards for the lead suspect. She worked as a secretary at a printing company and is said to have received only 4,000 shillings for the 4 IDs. All the 5 suspects will appear in court on Thursday. Right, a good point now where we can let in our panelist who we introduced earlier to, of course, take us through this particular development. If this was not really thwarted by police, and of course we salute them for the good salutary effort they put forth in making sure that they foiled this attempt. Had it happened, we don't know what will be the magnitude and the scale of it. But I'd introduce earlier to you Professor Naomi Damba, who's the Vice Chancellor of KC University, also an expert on defense and foreign policy. We do have with us also Ambassador Erastus Bwencha, who is the former Deputy Chair of the African Union. We do have with us right now Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, who is an expert on conflict resolution and also a national security expert. We do have Dr. Hassan Khanenje, who is the Director of the Horn Institute, and also we do have with us Dr. Wirunga Simiyu, who is the CEO of the African Center for Security and Strategic Studies. Right, let's just begin with Wirunga Simiyu on this particular development, seeing what happened and the way it was foiled. Now we have the full details of this and the scale and magnitude of this particular, of course, terror attempt will have been devastating, so to speak. First of all, it seems that every year, the beginning of year, from January, the first quarter, maybe to March, there's always an attempt. And it seems maybe this is always in the, the planning of the terror or the terrorists, especially the Al-Shabaab, that every year we can see there has to be something. Maybe it's El Ade, it's maybe also the terror attack at Garissa. All this happens during the first quarter. Yes. Now, how should we always be keeping our eyes peeled and keeping out our ears when the year begins for this particular attempts by the terrorists?
I think it's very difficult to really say why it happens around this time. We may end up speculating, but I think they always take advantage of end-of-year activities when they think everybody's guard is down, and therefore that's when they plan. They might be seeing that around this time, November, December, most of Kenyan organs and the Kenyan people are sort of relaxed towards December.
Towards December, huh?
Yes, and therefore that's the time they don't think there'll be a lot of scrutiny in what they do. And they might be taking that advantage so that by the time we are hitting New Year, everything is in place so that before Kenyans settle down,
yes,
then they carry out their acts the way they are doing. My suspicion is it's basically the activities that we undertake as a people around the end of the year that gives them the leeway to be able to move around, do what they're planning to do, so that as we start settling in the new year, that is the time they want to cause havoc to this country. But I think on top of that, we also need to congratulate our intelligence service. The fact that they had the capacity to follow these people all over and be able to monitor what was happening and be able to arrest them far away from the target.
Yes.
I think to me that is it requires commendation and it's a good thing for us, and therefore as a country I'll want to, for example, talk about the lady and the man. We also know that in this country the issue of ID card is very common.
yes,
So it's likely that maybe the girl was just earning some little money to do what she does best every day.
unbeknownst to her, maybe
yes,
on
matters
yes.
of fake documents. But then she ends up being into this. So I hope investigations will be done well so that even as we deal with issues of terrorism, innocent Kenyans, and I'm not saying she's innocent, I'm just saying that this is a very common on Lutele Avenue, River Road, matters of fake papers. So that as we deal with them, we commend our police service, we commend our intelligence people, but I think that to me is the reason why it is always happening around this time of the year. And you also realize with my little experience when I was in the military, normally around this time is when soldiers are also getting back to the camp, they're settling down, they're starting new things, they're starting new plans, and therefore there's this idea of people not being very strict with their surveillance and the matters of security. So to me, that is probably why it's been taking place around this time of the year.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there any rhyme or reason why they were particularly intent on the Supreme Court, Dr. Khanenje?
Well, the Supreme Court represents a lot of things to a country. It is the seat where justice is sought, and part of a terrorist agenda is actually to make important institutions irrelevant. They want to disorganize and disorient society. Now, these people, sometimes I think we get them wrong because they tend to be very adaptable and they're very smart and they're extremely vicious. They look for opportunity and vulnerability. A lot of times our Supreme Court is not exactly a place where you say it's guarded 24/7. It's not a military installation. And more often than not, a lot of people can walk in and out. And so they see an opportunity and a place, an installation that is actually vulnerable. Now, three things that this incident actually has revealed. The importance of collective vigilance and perpetual collective vigilance for that matter. Because if the community wasn't involved, for instance, and helping security services actually identify some of these things,
yes,
chances are it will still have gone through. Number two, it speaks to the importance of having a strategy that recognizes that this enemy is not going away anytime soon. They seem to be extremely stubborn. They seem to be resilient, which means we need to develop our own resilience as a country and make sure that our strategy, it is not a one-off thing or reactionary. And we, again, like my colleague just said, I would like to extend my congratulations to our security services for actually a job well done, because had it gone ahead, it would have caused a lot of damage to this country.
All right, let's hear from Dr. Mustafa Yusuf Ali, because first of all, we can see this is the IG coming to actually speak on behalf of the security agencies on what really happened, and these are the full details that we do have, especially when it comes to following this particular attempt. We wonder, where is the counter-terrorism unit headed by Ambassador Martin Kimani? We've never seen his face to really come and tell us, or what is the role of this counter-terrorism unit right now? Especially when we have this sort of an attempt from the terrorists. We only see the AG, or is he too busy right now with the dialogue between Raila Odinga and and the President Uhuru Kenyatta, because I know he's a part of that particular, a team that was formed to facilitate, some of the 9 points agenda for that particular dialogue.
Yeah, thank you, Dibal. First of all, the NCTC, the National Counter-Terrorism Strategies work is not to bust the terrorist. Actually, their work is more government, public engagement to engage communities in countering violent extremism, a lot more on that than the kind of work that we've seen, or the busting of these lone wolf cells, yes, or packs. First of all, it appears that the strategy that the National Intelligence Service, they will not always come out and say that they are the ones who are responsible for busting these lone wolf packs, but so they're the ones who are responsible doing that. And the strategy that they've adopted since 2014 looks like it's working very well in terms of the interagency coordination right across the security sector. And the more aggressive intelligence gathering, these guys would have caused massive damage. And there are quite a number of other plots that have been busted that do not necessarily come out in public, because they still need to pursue certain individuals that perhaps are still under surveillance. Now, it appears that some people escaped from arrests in the Isiolo area, and that's a huge danger to the country. And the fact that this plot was actually in the Merti Isiolo area speaks a lot, Dibal. We've had plots hatched more in Elwak, from the other side of the border, Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, and that these terrorists are moving on the northern side towards Isiolo and towards the western parts, northwestern parts of Kenya, to avoid detection. Yes. These lone wolves that are still operating, it's so important that they are actually apprehended, and that the investigations are conducted swiftly. The ISIS issue, ISIS losing territory in Iraq and Syria, means that those individuals that come from the region that have been fighting for ISIS will find their ways back and will come and form their own cells, yes, in many parts of the Horn of Africa. And there is still a lot of work to be done, Dibal. We will see these kind of attempts to attack Nairobi, Mombasa, and other cities. And it's up to the security agencies to really do more to apprehend these guys before they attack.
And maybe we can also hear from Ambassador Rasas Mencha, because I think it was the position of the African AMISOM, African Union Mission in Somalia, where we had Francisco Madiero telling, of course, the media, that by end of 2017 we'll have seen, a large chunk of soldiers being withdrawn from Somalia and hand over this particular exercise to the Somali government. If it was not towards the end of 2017, then it will have been maybe the first quarter of 2018. Is this plan still in the pipeline? And do you think this is the right move to actually do it and hand it over to, so are they really ready to, contain or try to neutralize Al-Shabaab?
Thank you very much, Dipal. Perhaps, maybe before I answer that question, today is an important occasion for Africa, because there is a summit taking place in Kigali.
Yeah, that we'll discuss later, but let's just
I'm happy that you'll discuss it, because
yes.
I was going to induct our local media for being silent on that.
Okay.
Now,
local media, but we've just highlighted from our dailies this morning.
But you were quoting Rwanda, press.
But this is a regional approach that we have, quoting a Rwanda newspaper that gave us
That's okay.
Fantastic.
Okay. Now, the question of AMISOM and the exit strategy is one that has been, on the cards for quite some time. And if you remember globally, whether you talked about those forces which went to Iraq or elsewhere, you must always have an exit strategy. And you must empower the local administration to have their own capacity to secure their own country. And of course, it isn't just simply withdrawing, as there is an extra strategy for AMISOM forces to leave Somalia. there is concurrently a plan to support Somalia to equip its own forces so that they can take care of their own security. In fact, this was also prompted by the Somalis themselves, who have not been very happy and comfortable with AMISOM forces because they feel like they are being occupied. And so I think that is quite okay. The timing, of course, many people would argue, you don't announce and give time. This is what sometimes people would argue. You could do it quietly, but of course this is in the public domain, and so it comes out to give a date when they will withdraw. Of course, one of the challenges that we are faced in Somalia, at least when I was there, is that when you are dealing with elements like Al-Shabaab, it is not a conventional army that you face uniformed and you can see them fighting, with lines drawn. They come and do this kind of thing, hit the society, but they also operate within the society. So I think the most important thing is, how do we organize our society now to be wary and also be supportive to security matters, so that we can be able to scale down and of course frustrate this kind of efforts by terrorists, because they will always be there. And particularly as we continue to face poverty and all other issues, there will always be people that can be easily wooed to become agents of this. And as you said, ISIS, as Mustafa was saying, as they withdraw from those other areas where they are, they will be looking for soft targets. And Africa is going to be one of those soft targets. And so we have to prepare ourselves for that.
All right. Let's hear from Noah Midamba.
Dubal, my colleagues here have pointed a number of very, very important issues surrounding this situation. Let me, for the purpose of the public, attempt to summarize what I think is very important points in regard to this situation. Number one, intelligence is the key to this war that we have in front of us. And good intelligence and good reinforcement is the way to defeat these folks. Law enforcement of any kind in our country is a target, as we have seen in the case of Somalia, Lamu. So law enforcement will continue to be a target of Al-Shabaab. So anything surrounding, whether it's a facility or police themselves, they're a target. Number three is anyone is a suspect. The most important thing is most of these people were young people. But John Kiari is an older person. And so you wonder, how did he get involved with this kind of thing, aiding and abetting this kind of situation? So anybody is a suspect in terms of intelligence. Number four, corruption. Corruption with the production and distribution of official document in Kenya, whether it is at River Road or wherever it is. We must really go after that to clean it before something is very serious. Lastly, we must secure our border. I've been saying this for a long time, that we need to have about 25 kilometer, a no-go zone, security zone between Somalia and Kenya. It does not matter how many equipments or what we do, we just must secure that border the way the Israelis have done with regard to terrorists. That's what
All right.
I can say.
Yeah, let's hear from, of course, on that issue of borders. I know also the senators are coming up with a bill, the country boundaries bill. I think that is going also to address these issues of porous borders as well. So let's see. I don't know the details of this particular bill itself. As soon as maybe I do have the depth of it, then we can be able to discuss it at a later forum here. But let's hear from. I can see you're straining at the list to tell us something also, Dr. Virunga.
You asked a question that has not been answered there. You asked the question, what is the difference? What is NCTC and what is their role? I think for the purposes of this country to understand how our architecture is made, is that NCTC is a coordinating entity
That's just put it in the full. That's the
a National
Counter-Terrorism
Counter-Terrorism Center
Yes.
is a coordinating entity on all matters of terrorism, radicalization. It also plays a role in public awareness. It is developed strategies on how the country can deal with issues of terrorism and radicalization. But every security organ in this country has a counter-terrorism unit. The
Every
police,
security organ, yes.
Yes, the police have a counter-terrorism unit. NIS has a counter-terrorism unit or department. The military intelligence has a counter-terrorism unit that now coordinate all their efforts under the NCTC. But on matters of implementing whatever strategy the country has, it is now the work of the police to implement what the center has collected together, planned for it, and share the intelligence among the interagency systems in the country. So NCTC is not an implementing organ. It coordinates all these efforts, and then the implementing organ out of all this interagency system
Yes.
is the National Police Service. So the intelligence will do their work. They might share or not share, but the person to go and arrest is the National Police Service. Even if these officers are on the ground with the police, but it's the duty of the police, and that's why you see the Inspector General is the one who is talking about it. But all this was done under a framework of interagency.
Right,
so it's important
y-
for the country to know
Yes.
that NCTC is not an implementing organ. It coordinates, it plans, it comes with strategies, it gives public awareness on all efforts that the country is doing to counter terrorism
All right.
and radicalization.
Maybe the clarification that also we didn't get from Dr. Mustafa is the fact that, yes, when you say that it is an interagency, and of course also they come up with strategies, do they disseminate these strategies to various security organs? And of course, the question will be again, is it meant to be a covert, sort of a center that we do not know what really happens with the counter-terrorism unit, so we just leave it the way it is, when they promise now that they are going actually to launch a counter-terrorism strategy, so we don't need to interrogate the strategy itself. I know strategy is a big thing, but of course we can have the executive summary of a strategy and we know what the strategy is all about. So question is it meant to be a covert organ? Covered body?
It is in two ways, but I think Dibal here you're a bit late on this one.
I'm a bit late.
NCTC shared that strategy long time. It is in public domain.
I remember.
Yes, and it is all over.
I remember the conference, but we never saw the. I've never even seen the strategy myself.
You know why? Because NCTC also works with civil society, private sector, so they've shared that strategy, and I know people have it.
Okay. No, the question is, that's why I'm asking you. That's why I'm asking you. Is it meant to be a covered strategy? Because even if we go to the website itself, you can't find a copy of the strategy. Is it there?
I think you didn't check well.
No.
When it was launched,
I haven't seen it.
No, when it was launched, you will get it on their website. A strategy is basically a plan of the national government working with the Kenyan people to deal with issues of terrorism and radicalization. It has nothing to do with overtness or covertness. Okay? So at the end of the day, many civil society organizations got that document. Many people in the private sector got that document. And actually, that's why one of their roles is public awareness. So they go out, and I know they've been running a school program.
Then they've been doing a very sucky job. Even if any media house has not picked up any public awareness on the counter-terrorism strategy, we think they're doing a very sucky job in the first place. Yeah? Don't you agree with me?
I don't speak for them. I just speak for what their mandate is. So
no. That's what we have to discuss from your own estimation, right? Even Professor Noami Damba, you're aware of his strategy, but do you have a copy yourself?
No,
he doesn't have a copy. You see, you do have a copy.
Yes.
Yeah, because maybe you still have some clammy fingers.
No.
Within governance, that's why. Yeah,
No,
he doesn't have.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an expert on defense and foreign policy. He does not even have the strategy itself, right? So they've been doing a very sucky job.
This is what I'll tell you. This is what I'll tell you. I know they've been a bit weak on that aspect of sharing what they need to share with the public. Because what they've done, they've come up with a team of civil society organizations, okay? The private sector. And those ones that are working with the NCTC have a lot of information on what they are doing. Yes, I agree they might not have done a good job to share what they need to share with the Kenyan people. But I think my argument was very simple, is that I'm trying to make the Kenyan people understand that NCTC is not an implementing organ. It coordinates. Then if it's a matter of arresting, investigating, it is left to the other arms that make the inter-agent system work.
Thank you, thank you. Let's
Let's
hear from Kanenje, we'll come to you.
Okay.
Let's hear from Dr. Kanenje. You have a copy of the strategy?
Not yet, but
not yet.
I've seen it somewhere.
You've seen it somewhere. He doesn't have officially the copy. You see, you say, right? So you actually agree that something needs to be done in terms of awareness?
Yeah, I think the awareness, especially the extent to which, because NCTC is doing a commendable job, and really, there are men and women there of high integrity who are very patriotic, and they're working really hard, to protect this country. But as you just mentioned, perhaps they're not being very effective in the way they say, okay, this is what we're doing. Some of the things, of course, cannot be revealed to the public, but mostly in terms of, let's say, media outreach or just public awareness, perhaps the public is not being informed sufficiently. And I'm sure they're watching right now where they are. Probably they're going to do something about it.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, first of all, I think it's important to say here that NCTC is not an intelligence gathering organization. In fact, they don't gather intelligence. NCTC, as Dr. Captain Simi Werunga said, is a coordinating agency. And because the issues of terrorism and violent extremism cuts across the fabric of the Kenyan society, you needed that agency that is actually engaged in coordination. Through schools, the police, the prisons, across all sectors. Before NCTC was a branch of the National Intelligence Service, it no longer is. It's an independent, standalone center that is supposed to, among other things, create or ensure some coherence in terms of the implementation of strategies to address terrorism and violent extremism. And it's not an implementing agency, as Simiyu is saying. The strategy, and again, we need to differentiate between counter-terrorism and countering violent extremism strategy. Those are two different strategies. The strategy that NCTC worked on is counter-violent extremism strategy, the CVE strategy, which was launched in Mombasa by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think that is available, parts of that is available, not the entire strategy is available, for strategic reasons. The CT strategy is resident with the National Intelligence Service, and they working very closely together with the National Police Service to focus on the harder issues, not the softer issues, the harder issues related to terrorism. And in some countries, you'll find the CT strategy available publicly. In a number of countries, you will not find the CT strategy available publicly. For example, in Canada, you'll find the CT strategy available publicly. So it just depends with the frameworks that are there and the priorities and what is it that is in that particular strategy. I think we still have a lot to do on the ideological pushback. This is an area that over the years, not so much attention has been paid, and a lot of efforts have been put on the militarization of counterterrorism. And then we forget the other bit of addressing the ideological issues. And by the way, ISIS, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, these groups are going to be, their military capabilities are going to be degraded, diminished eventually, but the issue of ideology is going to remain. And if we do not address the issue of ideology that these groups thrive on, then we will just basically remain with a problem that might come up again in different fashion.
Right, let's hear from Ambassador Erastus.
Just a quick comment on that aspect that Mustafa was advancing. I've seen in some of the countries where you organize a society, first of all, to get the public buy-in, which is very important, particularly when you have to fight, terrorism and extremism. Because what is important here is information, and also getting the public to be very much sensitized to the dangers this poses to themselves, and also cooperate with security forces so that they can provide information. I know we have had a go at having this Nyumba Kumi and didn't go very far. And maybe the way it was implemented, I would ask all those responsible to look at it and perhaps have a different architecture so that you can get the public participation. Because if you go to countries like Switzerland, I mean, the public is proud to participate in security. And they provide information because they know it's good for the society. Mm-hmm. And so we should now, I'm happy to hear that it's being taught in schools. If it is being taught in schools, then I don't see why it cannot be made public so that the other people can also participate in it. I think let's revisit these issues because it is not going to go away very easily. We need to be aware that strategies are changing on both sides on how to counter, but also they always move a notch higher. So let's have centers that can always be studied so that they can come up with countermeasures but pass on this information to our security forces and society so that we can remain on guard.
All right. Let's just have also the closing remarks on this as well, unless you have any other pressing point that you want to raise on this, or the National Counter-Terrorism Unit as well. Let's hear from Noah Midamba.
The Bala go back to the old.
You will liaise with
the old
Verunga to also give you a copy of a counter-terrorism strategy.
I will get it. But I go back to the old colonial system where the chief was very powerful and the chief had barasa, and every week the citizens were well informed. We have diminished the role of the chief,
yes,
which is fine. But we have also forgot that the most vital information at the grassroots level is no longer distributed. And therefore, the intelligence that they gather at that particular time, which was very critical for the national action, is absent or very, very weak at present time.
All right. Maybe before we take a short break, the point also will be the Nyumba Kumi initiative when we're talking about community participation and matter security as well. We can leave alone the National Counter-Terrorism Unit. Of course, now they need to up the ante in terms of public awareness of what they do and the strategy, and also to make sure also the media houses are, at least, maybe also the media houses, we've been a bit lazy in trying to seek out for this information as well. So I will attest to myself not really doing a very good job in terms of getting hold of this particular strategy. But when it comes to also Nyumba Kumi initiative, headed by Joseph Kagudi as well, and Werunga also, maybe you can give us, you used to be part of this Nyumba Kumi initiative at some point. Do you think you did a good job yourself?
He left.
Yeah. Yes, but I left.
You left.
But that does not. But right now, if you go to counties, there's a document we used to call document number 4 that speaks about how the public is supposed to work with government security organs and how they're supposed to relate and coordinate. And that document is now being used, I can't remember, but it's some document number 4, I think regulations and guides. That document now is being used together with the Inspector General's guidelines on community policing, because he has just issued guidelines for the police officers to use so that they merge with this document that was contributed by the Nyumba Kumi initiative, at least when I was there. I don't know what they've done for the last 2 years. And then we also, because I was running a program, I told you at the coast, and it was a public security program. So we are combining this document number 4 from Nyumba Kumi. We are combining the usage of IG's instructions on community policing issued by the National Police Service. We are also bringing in the National Coordination Act, where we have the county governments. And the fact that the officers in the county governments are the chairpersons of county, sub-county security and intelligence committees. So we are combining all these things under the National Security Act that actually delineates these responsibilities to the county government system. And all of them are now being taken through in certain counties as pilots as they move together to ensure that all these things are working. So Rastas, Nyumba Kumi came up with a very good document. Now, how it is being used now, to be honest, I've been away for about 2 years. But the last time I was at the coast, working with the county governments, county commissioners, and the public, we are combining all these documents to put together, giving the public the responsibility and the roles and coordinating mechanisms on how they work with the public. So I'll think that the National Counter-Terrorism Center, in its efforts on public awareness and capacity building, they should be going through those kind of mechanisms to ensure and empower the Kenyan people to assist it to deal with issues of counter-terrorism and radicalization. And probably because we don't know the inner understanding of what happens and what happened for them to go through this, I'm sure the public played a major role. How they did it, we might never get the details, but I'm sure the public must have played a major role for our government security organs to do what they've done on this plot.
All right, before we take a short break, just briefly, we'll give you a chance on the other side of the break. I just wanted to also to maybe you to tell us, because we've had also Joseph Kaguthi on this forum and he's expressed his frustration on the Nyumba Kumi initiative on regard maybe also of the financing of the initiative itself, that they don't have proper financing. Is that true?
I'll say this, and I don't know, it's up to him to come and counter. When I was there...
When you were, yes.
When we were there, we were asked by the government to come up with our own budget. And we worked on the budget for 2 years, the ban. We gave the government a budget of 451 million for 2 years. Activities, allowances, and everything. And I'll tell you, the government did not remove a shilling on that budget. So for the 2 years, Nyumba Kumi was given the exact amount we had asked for. So for the 2 years I was there, I know we were given money because we were told to come up with a budget ourselves. And I led that effort because of my small timings in the civil society. We came up with a budget, we presented it to the government, and the government did not remove a shilling. So for the 2 years, I know we were given money. If something has happened after that, then I think the chairman can explain to the Kenyan people.
All right, so then in terms of, I'm sorry to put you on the spot because you and Nitso, you're the right person to tell us.
Yes.
What would have been, or maybe you can give us some two high spots that you've had from the Nyumba Kumi initiative that we can say Kenyans really know these are the achievements of Nyumba Kumi initiatives. Just two high.
Meru was a very successful county, by the way. We had quite a number of clusters. We used to call them clusters. So we used the county commissioners, we used the chiefs, we used the assistant chiefs, and actually we had very good clusters in Meru. To us, Meru was a success story.
But why would you choose Meru instead
of... No, we're going around the country. You see, it depends on how government officers operate. You give them targets, you work with them, but the level of engagement of government officers on the ground will determine how successful that project was. So I'm saying like Meru was a very successful project for us.
So is an
yes,
element of cooperation?
Some areas actually it worked. Some areas, to be very honest, Nyumba Kumi started working very well because they were now collaborating with. You see what we did? Maybe if you give me 2 more minutes.
No, let me take a short break. We'll circle back with you and also Erastus Mwencha on that.
Okay. Yes. But one thing I want to...
You'd asked for 2 minutes. Let's give you one.
I don't speak for Nyumba Kumi, but I'll speak for what I know. So I'm not representing them. I'm not their spokesperson. Lest they say Werunga is talking on this and he left. This is what happened. When we started with Nyumba Kumi, you know this country had already experienced initiatives on community policing.
Yes.
But what happened, the original community policing was hijacked by non-responsive Kenyans who started colluding with the police officers on the ground to actually harass the Kenyan people.
Yes.
So instead of them having been people who are supposed to assist the community to prevent crime, they became part of the problem. So when Nyumba Kumi came, we changed all that concept about electing people to participate in Nyumba Kumi initiatives. We met a lot of resistance in places where those people had been trained themselves. But I can tell you by the time I was leaving, we had done, according to us, a fairly tremendous job to turn everything around, take people through their own elections, elect their own people on the ground, so that whoever was in charge of Nyumba Kumi initiative was a person elected by the community. And then, of course, there was that process of vetting and everything, so that whoever is in charge is a person who has gone through very legal, very effective security systems and procedures for them to be in charge. So as phase 1 of Nyumba Kumi, I think by the time we were coming to the close of that phase 1, we had registered quite a good progress on what we were doing. But after that, of course, it was changed from Nyumba Kumi to National Committee on People's Participation and National Security. That one, I have no idea what they've been doing. I don't know whether they're having issues on finance, but I can tell you the first one, I think the government was very helpful, and it gave us what we wanted, and I think to some level, we managed to hit some successes in some places. But I agree, after that, I think nobody knows and nobody hears what is happening.
Nobody knows, nobody
I think
hears.
the chairman should be invited here to come and tell
Yes.
Kenyans what is happening on the
So
ground.
nobody knows, nobody hears, and
Yeah.
yet it is drawing funds from the exchequer.
I'm not sure, because I don't know.
Yeah, but of course, we should have known if
This phase
yes,
2, I
yeah.
don't know, because I was not part of it.
Okay. What is also the role of Dr. Stephen Kobia? Yeah?
I don't know whether he's part of them now.
Is he part of, he's not part of the Nyumba Kumi, but what role does he have in government in terms of counter-terrorism? Because we've never heard also from him. Maybe Dr.
They've been
Mustafa...
working very closely
They've
with
been
Dr.
working...
Mustafa,
Oh,
yes.
okay. So he's been actually helping Dr. Mustafa...
Reverend Kobia.
Reverend Kobia.
Oh, Reverend Kobia.
Yes, Reverend,
Reverend Samuel Kobia.
Samuel Kobia.
Yeah, no, he is the advisor to President Uhuru Kenyatta on cohesion, peace, and conflict resolution, not in terrorism.
Not in terrorism.
No, no.
But on that aspect, of course, is matter security as well. What have they done? What have they done? What have they been doing? Or is just an advisory role that is nothing to do with the public in terms of cohesion? So where we've never had, even maybe most of Kenyans they're hearing with that name today, they've never known there's a Reverend Samuel Kobia who is involved as an advisory role on national cohesion.
It's advisory, Dibal, and most advisors do not implement. They just work on documents that have policy implications, and it's up to the president and his cabinet to implement what the advisors are telling them to do.
Oh, so you hold with what Dr. Mustafa is saying?
Yes, I totally agree. That's what advisors do.
That's what advisors do?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We need to wind up on it unless... Professor Nomi Dabasa.
The only thing I want to say is that there is too many documents that have been produced by all various type of people. National Security Act, National Police Service Act, National Police Service Commission, Independent Policing Oversight. All these documents are available. The problem is an clear oversight, monitoring and evaluation.
Precisely.
And lastly, the outcome.
Absolutely.
So that is what is missing. So we need to invest our money. I think we were talking about how much money is needed. Okay, I don't know if there is end result of over 400 million, 1 billion, whatever. That doesn't matter. What matters is are we achieving what we are investing for? And if we are not, then we are on the wrong route. Let's re-engineer the whole process and let's redo it and do it right.
All right.
Just one last thing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Erastus. No, sorry. Erastus. I promised him.
Yeah, okay. I was just going to share what I see as best practices in terms of implementation of Nyumba Kumi, where I've seen it work elsewhere. Security matters should never always be a standalone activity. It should be part and parcel of society's concern. And where it works best, the Nyumba Kumi is not organized simply to have a chair that looks after security, that is seen like somebody looking over your shoulder. It is done in such a way that in that Nyumba Kumi, people are concerned about the health of that Nyumba Kumi, they are concerned about the environment, they are in terms of making sure that it's clean in their part, they are concerned about education, and they gather data. They meet regularly, provide data, and this data goes to a central. In this day of technology and information, you can gather that information so that if there is an outbreak of some disease in some locality in Nyamira, the Minister of Health gets to know within 5 minutes that there is a strange disease that has occurred here. But therefore, you organize Nyumba Kumi differently. I have taken initiative to try and get our security architecture to come and share that information with some of the countries that were ready to share that. But unfortunately, the wheel turns slow. And I think let's revisit this issue, because as we discussed for now some time on matter security, it is going to be with us. And I think it's up to the society to be sensitized and equipped so that we can know how to handle this issue.
All right, so we should really have different pegs, even if it's in a Nyumba Kumi initiative, instead of really turning the focus on matters just security. Security is, a wide gamut having different scopes. It's not just a matter of, attacks. It could be also environmental issues.
Correct.
When you talk
I
about
think-
these
I
community forest associations as well, should that also be part of a Nyumba Kumi initiative? Right?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
What the chairman is saying is what Nyumba Kumi is. That cluster is used to take care of the community. And that's how we organized it.
He's
It
surprised
is
that
not-
he's not even aware. Look at him.
That's why I'm saying
Yeah,
some counties,
he's-
that's why I'm telling you some counties were not successful. So I gave you an example of only one county. Nyumba Kumi, the way we had organized the structure, is that this cluster will be in charge of security, will be in charge of agriculture, will be in charge of education, will be in charge, they'll be discussing everything that affects that community at that time. And that's why we were linking them to the county intelligence committee, to the county agriculture, to the county education. That is how it was organized. It's just that maybe they have not come out clearly to say what else they do. But yes, we understand. And I'll tell the chair, Nyumba Kumi has only been practiced in Tanzania, which we didn't follow the model. What we did is we took Nyumba Kumi as the lowest cluster on community policing. And community policing is essentially what we are discussing now, because there's nowhere else I know where the basic understanding of Nyumba Kumi was practiced except Tanzania. So what we did, because we know the Tanzanian model has a negative impact on the Kenyan people, we agreed with the government national security organs that we will want to make Nyumba Kumi to be the lowest cluster on the structure of community policing. So that at the village level we have a Nyumba Kumi system that goes up to sub-county, location, subdivision, up to the county level. But all these committees are in charge of everything that the chairman has just spoken. I think it's just that the Kenyan people have not been told what else that cluster is supposed to do, but it cuts across societal structures and it deals with anything that affects the society at that level.
Right. Let's run it up with Dr. Mustafa, because it seems also with your planning, there was a poor planning on communication. It seems poor planning
That's
on
not for
disseminating
me.
information. You're
Why
part
you
of that
blaming me?
committee.
I
So
left.
no. And this is the problem with leaders in this country. If you left, I'm not responsible.
Absolutely.
I was not there. You cannot. I'm not holding bill for this. If I left 20 years ago. No. You also need to admit, of course, in terms of communication, you didn't do a good job, Dr. Werunga.
Okay, 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's a shame.
5 seconds.
It's 5 seconds.
One of the people or one of the entities that we had started working with before I left was the media. And actually we held many meetings, especially with the radio stations. After that, we are now coming to the mainstream media. So yes, there was an element of communicating to the people. What is
Dr.
supposed
Mustafa,
to be
they're
done.
still coming to the mainstream
Yeah,
media.
no, Dibali, you are spot on.
Yes.
Communication.
Yes.
The Nyumba Kumi is essentially a very good thing, actually. An excellent way of helping the country and involving Kenyans in security. But the way that was introduced, and I think Simi will agree with me, the way it was introduced to Kenyans was something like, snooping on your neighbor. Yes. And so just that, and it wasn't that, it was about collective security. And so the way it was introduced to Kenyans was about, just looking at what your neighbor is doing and then reporting your neighbor. Precisely after Westgate. And the whole thing was, the fact that it was called Nyumba Kumi, it just made the whole thing, not dead on arrival, but it was very weak on arrival. No creativity in terms of naming what it is. The fact that Tanzania has been using Nyumba Kumi, so it looked like we're just copy from Tanzania. And yet the community policing, and the whole project is actually beyond just Nyumba Kumi. Simui is talking. So it's not Nyumba Kumi, it's more than that. And a proper name should have come out of that. With regard to NCTC, and I know they're doing excellent work. Some of their officers have shared with us some of the success stories that they've posted. And I want to encourage them to actually share this with the public.
Yes.
Because they are so good, and it's in the public domain because they are working. Some of these success stories is what they've done with the community. So share this work with communities.
Right, there is a call there to share what the Nyumba Kumi initiative is doing down on the ground. Of course, if you're a beneficiary of Nyumba Kumi initiative, how has it been successful down within your community? And of course, Dr. Runga alludes to many facets of the Nyumba Kumi. Are you aware of it? Yes, that you have the educational component of it, environmental component, besides just security component as well, even health as well, down within the communities. So let us